Can Alexander Volkenovski destroy Islam Machachev in their upcoming bout this weekend at UFC 284? Maybe. I really want Volkanovski to win. And it's not even because I prefer him as a fighter. I kind of like Islam's style more because he has a higher finish rate. But it's mostly because I want the upset. I think MMA is built on upsets. I think it's built on the chaos. And right now we're having some, let's just say consistency. Especially in the lightweight division. Like the UFC is still more or less in Habib's shadow, you know? Like the Dagestani dominance is very prevalent. And I want to upset the established order. Well, I want Volkanovski to upset the established order. I want to see an upset. I want to see him beat Islam. I'm going to break down exactly how I think that can happen. I do think Volkanovski has a chance. We'll jump straight into this by talking about Islam's wrestling, because that's really where no one gives Volkanovski a chance. And if we're talking about Islam's wrestling, it makes sense on paper that he destroys Volkanovski with his dominant wrestling. On paper. We have a bunch of things going for Volkanovski in his favor. His tenacity, his ability as a champion to learn and improve. He's improved so much. You know, from making the fight was fairly close at the start with Volkanovski and Holloway, and then he's just completely outclassing Holloway at his own game. You know, those jumps in learning and how he's running around his whole division right now. It's really impressive, and we hope there's some sort of build-up and some sort of increase in his wrestling ability. The thing is, we haven't seen any wrestling from Volkanovski for a long time, and it's mostly because he's from featherweight. Because if you haven't noticed, featherweight has no good wrestlers. Featherweight shit at wrestling. And it's like, you need to look at any other division and we have dominant wrestlers at the top or all their champions, or they're at the top of their division. You know, bantamweight has Aljamain Sterling, Merab Dvalishvili, however you say his last name. Lightweight has obviously the Dagestanis, Islam, Arman Sarukian. You know, you got all these dominant wrestlers. Welterweight's full of wrestlers. Light heavyweight was just dominated by a grappler and a champion in Glover Teixeira. Like we have wrestling, we have divisions where wrestling's not as prevalent, like middleweight or heavyweight. Heavyweight's starting to get there with its wrestling. But featherweight's really got no one at the top who's a strong, dominant wrestler who mainly uses wrestling. We have people who mix in takedowns in their game, but we don't have someone who's a straight up beast at dominating, at body control, you know, keeping someone down that whole time. You know, who are the top guys in featherweight again? We got Yair Rodriguez and Josh Emmett, they're on the co-main. We've got Arnold Allen, Max Holloway. Like, all these guys are strikers. Calvin Kattar, like, when's the last top featherweight that was a really dominant wrestler? And to go from, like, even if there was a dominant wrestler, there's still, like, there's dominant wrestling and then there's Dagestani wrestling, right? And they sort of have a cheat code because they practice MMA from a young age. Like, here in the Western world, we really have to go to different places. We have to learn to wrestle. We have to learn jiu-jitsu. We have to learn kickboxing. We got to put them all together ourselves. Whereas the Dagestanis really got they got an edge on everyone that I don't think people talk about enough, because they practice Sambo, which is basically MMA. It incorporates everything, you know. I don't have to learn jiu-jitsu submissions and then wrestling, and then put them all together. I could just go learn Sambo. Well, you can't really in the Western world, but that's really why they have such an edge. And to say Volkanovski can jump from not wrestling and not fighting dominant wrestlers to beating the wrestler of the UFC, you know, like, it's just a bit crazy. So I understand why everyone's counting him out. But I have a few factors. I have a few ways he can win here. And if he's coming in with the right game plan, I think he could win. The main thing he needs to get away from is the wrestling. And I think he does that in two ways. With his ring control, and this is going to sound silly, but his height. I think some people have talked about this. Volkanovski's very low to the ground compared to Islam. Now, if you don't know, with wrestling, it's all about body control in the middle of the torso and hip control. If you can get a hold of someone's hips or the middle of their body in a body lock, you've got good stance to put them down after that. Volkanovski's shorter, so it's going to be harder for Islam to get under him. He also has, it doesn't take him, it's less distance for him to sprawl, if you know what I mean. If Islam wants to shoot for a double leg, he can sprawl a bit faster because his hips are already lower to the ground. So wrestling someone shorter can be an issue if you guys are the same weight. The thing is, I think the main issue with that is Islam's not going to go for blast double legs. I really don't think he's going to shoot from range for that exact reason. Like, Volkanovski's quicker than him. He's shorter than him. He's a little ball of muscle. I think Islam, where he's going to work in this fight, if he does dominate, like people say he is, it's going to be in the clinch. If he gets a hold of Volkanovski, I think the clinch game is going to really mess up Volkanovski. Because once you're in a clinch with a good wrestler like that, he's just going to change up where he's taking you down. Maybe you go for a single leg. Maybe you go for a body lock and an inside trip. Maybe you go from an overhook and an outside trip. Like, there's so many different ways he can take you down. And that's the same as being against the cage. If Volkanovski is against the cage in this fight, I think he also gets taken down. I don't think he can get out of Islam's clinch, and I don't think he can get away if he gets stuck against the cage. And that's why I brought up ring control. And I don't think many people are talking about this, but if Volkanovski can control the ring and stay off the cage, I think he can win. And I'll tell you about the shot selection and what he'll actually hit Islam with in a second. But let's just give you an example of why I think he definitely can avoid Islam's pressure and avoid that cage, avoid the end of that cage. We saw him deal with Holloway's pressure, and that is different because Holloway's a striker, and that's where Volkanovski feels comfortable. But also, you have to think about Holloway moves through shots. He gets hit, he kind of moves forward and hits you 3 times, you know? He overwhelms you with volume. His head movement ain't the best in the world. At the best in the world level. Obviously, he can head movement Calvin Qatar all day, you know, and those lower ranked guys. But at the very tippy top, he's getting lit up by Volkanovski, you know? He's getting lit up by Dustin Poirier. These really, really high up strikers can really make Holloway's face look like a pizza. The point I'm making here is as Holloway comes forward, Volkanovski was able to punch, blitz in and punch, and then blitz out before Holloway could get his rhythm started and start to put on that volume on Volkanovski. And with Islam, the thing with Islam is that he's very defensive. These Dagestani guys, they're very risk avertive, right? They want to stay away from the punches. If you feint at them or if they're about to get hit, they will parry and move away straight away. They want to stay away from the punches at all costs. This is good to not get hit, but it's also going to give Volkanovski a chance to bring back more space for himself. If he feints or throws out a jab, Islam moves back and he can dart to the side. As they're circling around the ring, he feints and then he moves. He feints and then he moves. He feints, maybe hits a little bit. I think the shot selection here for Volkanovski is going to be mostly jabs and low commitment shots, if you know what I mean. Inside leg kicks, calf kicks, body jabs. These sort of light punches he can go. He can feint first, go with a light hit, score a point, and blitz out. If he uses this like circular motion, encircling Islam, and he throws out these feints to make Islam back up, he can then touch him up with these smaller shots. He's not going to use stuff like body kicks and leg kicks, like the upper thigh kicks. When you're fighting such a dominant wrestler, they're just not. The risk is not worth the reward. You know, they can catch the kick so easily and deal with you and take you down from that. You know, same with front kicks. I don't think we're going to see many front kicks from Volkanovski. I really think if he's going to win this fight, he's going to show off the cage control and pressure management he did show off in the Holloway fight. Except he's going to be able to back Islam up more because Islam is so defensive. And that's where I think the feints come in. Like I just said, he feints, Islam moves back, he might score a jab to the body, score a jab maybe upstairs to the head a little bit. It's very hard to hit Islam's head. He's very parry. He parries a lot. Maybe scores an inside leg kick and circles back around. Islam might shoot some double legs from range, but I think Volkanovski has the height and the strength and the timing to sprawl those, because it's actually very hard, like I said, for him to get shot on by such a taller opponent. You know, it's going to take Islam longer to get to his hips, whereas Volkanovski can just sprawl very quickly. So if he can avoid the shot from range, all he has to do after that is show off the cage control he's already shown off and move away from Islam. The way he starts actually destroying Islam is if he starts making defensive reads. I don't think we're going to see him let his right hand go for quite a while. I think we're going to see feint, circle away, feint, inside leg kick, circle away, blitz in for a feint, move away, maybe dodge a shot from Islam while he comes in. Making reads like that, that's when we're going to start to see the right hand come through. As in, he's going to feint in, shot to the body, Islam's going to move back, and he's going to time Islam moving back and maybe put the right hand through. In my opinion, when you start seeing Volkanovski land right hands in this fight, that's when you know the fight just got real. Because before that, we're going to have a lot of Volkanovski running, a lot of point fighting, a lot of calf kicks, a lot of body jabs, a lot of circling. But when he starts making those reads on Islam's defense, Islam jumps back and parries a lot. And we see Volkanovski is very good at extending in. So we see these in all his fights with the Korean Zombie, Ortega. Literally every fight you watch of his, he'll throw a feint and he might counter someone trying to counter him. Or he might lunge in with the right hand. I don't think he's going to do that recklessly in this fight because he'll get clinched up and taken down. What I think is going to happen is he's going to start point fighting. He's going to start the process of getting away from Islam Makhachev's wrestling. And then we're going to see the right hand come through after a read. Maybe he jabs and Islam parries it. And then he goes right hand to the body. You know? Or he knows Islam's going to step back. So he steps right in and throws a good long range right hand. And if that lands on Islam, this is another thing. I don't think we're going to get a KO in this fight. But the way it would happen is if Volkanovski is really good at this ring control and this pressure control. And he's out-pointing Islam and out-hustling him. He's moving around. He's feinting to the body, to the head, moving around. Calf kick, move around. And he's just spinning around Islam and backing him up with feints and backing him up with shots. Landing a little bit and then moving back. And then the shots are going to start to get worse as Islam gets more frustrated and tries to blitz in. Now, I think there is one comment from Islam that we could look at in hindsight being like, that's why he lost. He said he wanted to KO Volkanovski. I do think Islam is not stupid. I think if a strategy is not working in a fight, he'll switch it up very fast. But going into it with that mindset, I think is incorrect. He got a knockdown over Oliveira because Oliveira does not have very good defense. He charges in with hard, very technical, good shots because he's not afraid to go to the floor. And that he got destroyed in that fight because of that style. He charged in, his defense isn't that good, Islam landed, and then he's concussed while he's on the floor and Islam just takes dominant position. Nothing like that's going to happen in this fight. Volkanovski's not going to hand you a punch in the head. As in, he's not going to walk in and let you hit him. But Oliveira doesn't let people hit him, but he kind of does. He kind of doesn't care. You go in very reckless. Volkanovski's very intelligent. He's very calculated. He ain't just going to blitz in and get hit. So I think Islam might be falling in love with his striking a little bit too much to say something like that. And I think that will give Volkanovski the edge. But I don't see Islam being silly enough to go for, say, he thinks he makes a read on Volkanovski, goes for a hook, and Volkanovski dips straight under it, slips and rips and smacks him. I don't think Islam's going to go, oh, well, I'm mad now and keep going forward and getting pieced up. The way we might see Islam lose his cool is if Volkanovski starts landing these right hands and pushing them through us after he's making defensive reads on Islam, and then Islam is down on the scorecards. It's going to be hard for that to happen because he can steal rounds like that. You know, one takedown, one hit against the cage. You know, clinch up, he's probably got that round now. Like, I think it's very unlikely Volkanovski can bring back around after he gets taken down. Or after he's up in a clinch. Because I just don't see him getting out of the clinch with Islam. I see him getting taken down then and then surviving, honestly, against the onslaught of the wrestling. So, the way I could see a finish is if somehow he's doing the circling stuff I'm talking about really well. And he's up on the scorecards. Can you imagine it? They're like, Islam's 3 down. And he's freaking out. Everyone's like, oh my god, Volkanovski's winning. He's like playing this crazy, like Floyd Mayweather-esque game where he's like just tapping, moving around, leg kick, moving around, leg kick, tap. Oh, he threw in a right hand there. That was crazy. Oh, he's back to tapping. He's back to point fighting. Islam can't get a hold of him. And Islam's boxing and striking just can't keep up with the faster, smaller, quicker guy who's just making all these reads and making sure he can just touch him up and move. So Islam looks back to his corner. Khabib isn't there. He knows he's not going to get sauna bath time with brothers if he doesn't win. No, and he starts getting annoyed. He starts charging in and making bad takedowns. Shooting from too long of a range. Volkanovski's too short. He sprawls it. He's a little ball of muscle. He sort of wrestles back up. And then in that break, whack, whack, whack. Combo, big piece combo up. And at this point, you know, Islam Makhachev's a bit tired. It's round 5. He's getting hit a lot. And he starts getting annoyed and maybe just throws out a silly punch. And again, Volkanovski dips under it. Whack, whack. Another 2. And then Islam's a bit stunned. The crowd's like, what is going on? Is this really happening? Volkanovski charges in. Whack, whack, whack. He's going in for a combo now. Islam is grabbing on for dear life. Just keeps grabbing onto him. Just keep grabbing on. But without a proper technical takedown, a guy of Volkanovski's caliber is not going to go down. He's not going to get taken down. So he starts just moving out, just muscling his way out of it and piecing him up even more. And then we probably see like a few good punches to the head after some damage over a few rounds. And the ref would just step in. while Islam's against the cage, just getting pieced up, like putting his hands up, trying to grab on, moving around, and the ref steps in, and that's it. Volkanovski wins by TKO. Everyone would go mental. I'm not even in the part of Australia where the fight is being held. I could probably hear it from here, all the Aussie, Aussie, Aussie being said. It would be crazy. It would be a massive, massive upset, and it would be very fun. We have to rely on a lot of X factors, though. In my head, X factor means a variable we don't actually know of yet. Now, we know the variables of Volkanovski's boxing. We know the variables of Islam Machachev striking, his wrestling. We know these. We've seen these in action. Maybe he can't sprawl the takedown from range. He's done if he can't do that. And maybe he gets subbed in round 1. We've just seen too much tenacity. We've seen too much improvement. We've seen Volkanovski dominate competition and just improve so rapidly. No one can really see that happening to him. As he says, he's the type of guy that doesn't happen to. Fun fact, if you watch any Volkanovski interview ever, he will constantly say, I'm the type of guy of, I'm just the type of guy of, I'm the type of guy to do this. At least 400 times, because he's the type of guy who'll say that. And I don't know if he knows any other way of explaining himself as the type of guy. But yeah, the way I see this as a destruction from Volkanovski is starting it slow and really not committing to a lot of shots. Just getting Islam out of his comfort zone. Making Islam chase him down. Making Islam try to shoot too long range, and getting sprawled. Piecing him up with smaller combos and lighter shots. I see a lot of jabs, a lot of calf kicks, like I said, a lot of inside leg kicks. And then once he starts making the reads, he'll be feinting. Islam will go back and he'll follow through with the right hand. The right hand landing in this fight is like maybe in the first round once or twice, just because he's so quick and Islam's not used to that. But if you see the right hand landing in the second, in the third, you're starting to see Volkanovski pick up his timing and start breaking down that defense. And that's where this is going to make the big difference in this fight. He could outpoint Islam in the start of it, but to really start, putting in some damage and starting to hurt Islam, that's when we're going to see the right hand follow through, and there's blitzing, long range shots as he sprawls in, he jumps in really hardcore. And I would lose my mind. I think it would be a very fun time if Volkanovski wins. It's fun to see someone just it's a marvel, you should say, to see someone just dominate the competition like Islam's been doing recently, and like Habib did. But again, it's not crazy. It's not, whoa! It's just, wow, he's so good. No one can beat this guy. I want the chaos. I want the upsets. And that's how I see Volkanovski potentially destroying Islam. He starts it off soft. He starts off with point fighting. He prioritizes ring control. That is so important for this fight. If he stays off the cage and he stays out of the clinch, he can win this fight. I think he can stuff the takedowns from long range as well. It's just about if he can't get out of those clinches, if he can't get off the cage, he's gonna have an issue. And that's also why, if I make a counter prediction, that's also why I see Islam Machachev possibly KOing him. I think this, in my head, I don't think this fight is going to end in a submission. I think it will end in a points win for Volkanovski, most likely, or most likely an Islam KO. Just because being so afraid of the takedown and having to worry about ring control so much, it's only going to take one shot to rock him. And if Islam's smart, that's what he's going to be focusing on. Threatening with the takedown, threat with the upstairs. That's how he lands in this fight. And I don't know why, but I'm feeling it. The head kick for Islam Machachev. I could see that. I can honestly see it. If you saw how fast his legs were coming up and striking Oliveira, they're really quick kicks. His kicks might be a big issue for Volkanovski in this fight, because Volkanovski's entire game plan relies on staying away from him and winning the long-range battle. Islam can throw out front kicks. He can throw out leg kicks. He can throw out body kicks. He can do that. Volkanovski's not going to take him down. So his kicks could actually ruin Volkanovski's game plan here if he focuses on them and if they're as good as I think they might be. And I could even see a head kick just because he's so low to the ground and because he's going to be worrying too much about a takedown and trying to feint with his hands out here. A head could come around. He kind of put his hand up and it'll wrap around his head. So yeah, Volkanovski, decision win. It's possible. He's a really good underdog here. If you want to risk your money, I'd say that would be a good bet. Volkanovski decision. I don't see a Volkanovski KO. I just think Islam is too defensively minded. And even the situation I was outlining where he gets frustrated and pulls forward too much and starts shooting bad takedowns, I just don't think he's that uncalculated. I don't think he gets frustrated and starts doing that. I believe in Islam too much. But then again, that's another X factor. We don't know Islam when he's under a losing situation. Maybe he will lose his cool. And then we'll see him start to run into shots and get pieced up. Wouldn't that be crazy? If he's just losing his cool, just grabbing on, shooting from bad takedowns, just going in, and Volkenovski just piecing him up. And then he starts rocking him, and then Islam starts moving back, but it's too late. Volkenovski smelled blood. He's blitzing in, just shot after shot, ducking under, shot, slipping, ripping, getting out of the clinch. Well, Islam's just rocked and can't do anything on the cage. That'd be mental. But if I have to say my actual prediction for the fight, I think I want a Volkanovski decision. If you're a guy who looks at the paper and the maths and the numbers, you have to say Islam submission, just because Volkanovski seems like he doesn't have the wrestling to keep up. He hasn't wrestled anyone lately. But let's bet for that upset, boys. Let's go for it. I am very keen for this fight. I'll let everyone know my reaction afterwards. And let's hope Volkanovski gets it. So I hope he gets the W. See you later.